welcome to DIY with Nancy. Hope you're all doing well. Today I'm going to make my recipe for almond squares, and I call them in Portuguese Quadradinhos de Ame. And the reason is they're square and they have almond, and in the bottom it's a soft dough texture with the caramelized almonds on the top. Mouth-watering. Absolutely delicious, and I hope you stay with me to watch how to make my almond squares, quadradinhos de amêndoa, step by step. So here are the ingredients you're going to need. Now we have here for this on the left side, this is for the dough. We're going to have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 3/4 cups of almond flour, 2 large eggs, 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/2 cup of melted butter, and 3 tablespoons of milk. Now moving on to this side, this will be for the topping. We have 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, 6 tablespoons of milk, 1 cup of sugar, and 2.5 cups of sliced almonds. As I go along with the recipe, I will list the quantity of the ingredients. Okay, let's get started. In a bowl, I'm going to place 1 cup of granulated sugar. And to that, I'm going to add 2 large eggs. Next, you're going to stir together the sugar and the eggs until you get a creamy texture. Once you form your creamy texture, at that point, you're going to add 1/2 cup of melted butter, and I'm using unsalted butter. Next, I'm adding 3 tablespoons of milk. Now at this point, I'm going to add the dry ingredients. I have here 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, and to that I'm going to add 3/4 cups of almond flour. Now I'm going to stir it together, and this texture is going to be a very sticky dough texture, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Here's the soft, sticky dough texture that you will end up with. Now here I have a piece of parchment paper. I have a 12 by 9 baking tray. It's a smaller tray, and I've placed butter at the bottom of the parchment paper so it can stick to the tray and it doesn't move while I'm placing the dough on. Now you'll see that the parchment paper is slightly bigger than the tray. It just makes it easier to lift, just like that, on the edges, the almond square once it's ready and out of the oven. So now let's start by placing the dough onto the tray. Now this dough is a sticky, spreadable dough. So we're going to start by placing it onto the tray, and you'll see that it is sticky, so you'll probably need a little help with a spatula or a spoon just to remove it easily onto the tray. Now to easily spread the dough onto the tray, and you want to make sure you get it spread out right to the end evenly and right to the 4 corners. That's very important. Now a little tip that works for me, if you find that your spatula is sticking to the dough, simply run your spatula through warm water or just dip it into a cup with warm water. Now I'm going to pre-bake the dough at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 15 minutes. While I'm pre-baking the dough, I'm going to start off with the almond topping. In a medium-sized saucepan, I am placing 1 cup of granulated sugar. To that, I'm adding 6 tablespoons of milk. And to that, I'm adding 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. Now, my butter is at room temperature. It doesn't have to be. It could be cold. It's going to melt anyway. So mine just happens to be at room temperature. Now, to that, I'm going to add the final ingredient, which is 2.5 cups of sliced almonds. I just want you to take a look at white sliced almonds. It's not toasted. We're just placing that into the saucepan. Now once you have all your ingredients in there, you're going to place your stove on a medium heat. And while it's in there, you're just going to stir it initially because you're going to have the butter and the milk and sugar come into a very sticky liquid. And that's what's going to make the almonds come together. So all I'm doing here is stirring all the ingredients together in the saucepan. I'm not going to keep mixing because eventually the milk and the butter is going to melt and combine. So all I'm going to do is just turn it around here so it can be a little easier. and I'm gonna, just like I said, just mix it up a little bit, and then on medium heat, just let it come to a boil. I gave it a quick stir, and I'm gonna wait until it comes to a boil. Now you can see it's come to a quick boil. Once it does, you're gonna give it a quick stir. You'll see it starts thickening. You want to turn your stove on to a low to medium heat and let it continue boiling for an additional 2 minutes. After 2 minutes, you can see it starting thickening. Turn off your stove and set it aside for a few minutes. Now moving on to the dough, it's now out of the oven after 15 minutes. The dough is not completely cooked, it's still soft, and that's all we're doing here is pre-baking it. So now we're ready to place the almond topping onto the dough. Now the final step is to place the almond topping right onto the dough. Now you can see there's some liquid mixture in there. That's exactly what you want. So it's thickened and you have a little bit of syrup. It's the sugar and the butter mixture. Now I'm placing the almond topping while the dough is still hot. You don't need to wait for it to cool. The almond topping is on the dough, and now I'm going to use a spatula to spread it out evenly, and I'm going to move it to the edges and the corners. Make sure that it's completely coated. I'm now ready to place it back in the oven. I'm going to place it on the top rack. I'll be baking it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit for an additional 25 minutes, or until the almonds are lightly golden brown. The almond square is out of the oven, and you can see that it has a nice golden brown color, and those almonds are nice and toasty, so delicious. Now you want to make sure before you cut into it that you let the almond square set for at least 45 minutes and let it cool completely. Now I'm ready to cut into the squares and make them into a 3x3 almond squares. You can cut them as big or as small as you like, but what I've done is I've gone and I've marked where I'm going to cut them, and then I went back with a serrated knife to cut the smaller squares. Now by cutting them on a 3x3 size, I'll get approximately 24 almond squares. Now let's take a look. You have some nice toasted caramelized almonds on the top and a soft dough texture in the bottom, and the chewiness on these almond squares are absolutely delicious and a delight to have any time of the day. Hey everyone, that was my recipe for the almond squares, Quadradinhos de Ame. Look at that, the soft chewy part and the bottom dough, and there's the topping of the caramelized almonds. Absolutely delicious. I hope you all enjoyed the recipe today, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time everyone, thanks so much for watching. Take care.